Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Coach Prime, the Colorado Buffaloes land another commitment in the transfer portal. This one coming from former top 50 national recruit, defensive lineman Quency Wiggins. And this is a very exciting transfer portal commitment, not necessarily for what you've seen on the college football field from Quency Wiggins yet, but more of an exciting get for what kind of football player Quency Wiggins can be with a little bit more development. One of the more intriguing prospects that Coach Prime has grabbed in the transfer portal. Really excited to get into some of my thoughts on him. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and a special shout out to the Colorado fans. This has been a program that has been just a blast to break down in the transfer portal. We're trying to cover as many of these transfer portal commitments as we can, and the amount of support from the Colorado fans has been absolutely amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content and enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Quency Wiggins. And this is a little bit of a change of pace in terms of the players that Colorado is going after in the transfer portal, right? The last 2 weeks, we've talked about what kind of commitments have they gotten. They've gotten proven guys who've played a ton of football at the Power 5 level and have a ton of experience. And that's kind of why we said this feels a little bit different, right? Everyone that's coming into Colorado, you kind of know what they are. They're going to be plug-and-play guys that you're going to get some productivity out of them because you know what they can do at the Power 5 level. Quency Wiggins, a guy that has every single trait that you want in a defensive lineman, just hasn't really played a ton of college football yet. And you start looking at the Quency Wiggins and who he is as a player, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. This is a guy that only started playing football as a junior in high school. And he vaults up the high school recruiting rankings because the traits are absolutely there. This is a 6'5", 265-pound phenomenal athlete that you check his wingspan, over 7 feet, 85-inch wingspan. So you start looking at all the traits that you want in an elite caliber defensive lineman. Quency Wiggins has those traits. And so the question is, then why hasn't he gotten on the field at LSU? It's because he was a developmental prospect. The reason he was a top 50 national recruit was not because of the football player that he was coming out of high school. It was the football player that he can be coming out of high school, right? This is a guy that went from not playing any organized football until his junior year of high school to be playing in the SEC. And it kind of makes sense why there were some growing pains. And you go back to kind of the narrative of him as a high school football player. It was inconsistent, but a ton of talent. And again, it makes sense because he hasn't played that much football. And at LSU, he struggles to get on the field, only had, I believe, 55 total snaps at LSU. One, they have a loaded front seven. And then two, this is a guy that is still learning the sport of football. So for Colorado, I wouldn't just evaluate Quency Wiggins, a guy that, he hasn't panned out at the college football level. I'd view him as, what is he going to look like year 3? Or year 4 for Colorado, because there is a reason he was a top 50 national recruit coming out of high school, because what he can be as a defensive lineman at the college football level is special. He has every trait that you want. You just got to continue to develop a guy like Quency Wiggins. And we've said it, like the main goal for Coach Prime in this Colorado program has been to get depth in these kind of bodies up front. And Quency Wiggins is certainly going to be some depth for this team. But more importantly, that is the exact body that Colorado wants up on that defensive line. And I started thinking of some other guys that have followed Quency Wiggins' career path in terms of committing to a Power 5 school, struggling to get on the football field, but then transfer out and the change of scenery, maybe a change of coaching, a change of scheme, and they kind of explode onto the scene, right? You had a former 5-star in Deion Sanders who started his career at Alabama, really struggled to find the football field for his first 3 years. He transfers to Arkansas and has an all-SEC year immediately. Right. And whether it is just an opportunity, whether it's a different kind of scheme that he's in, whether it's just a different coach and scenery at that program, he had all the traits. It just didn't pan out at Alabama. And he goes to Arkansas, has a phenomenal year. Another guy that probably a lot of people are familiar with is Jameson Williams, who started his career at Ohio State, really struggled to find the football field there, transfers to Alabama, and has an All-American year. So you've seen these kind of players who have all of that talent just not be able, for whatever reason it is. And for Quency Wiggins, I think it's just because he's lacked experience playing the sport of football. Transfer out, find a different scheme, find a different fit, and explode onto the scene. And if you're Colorado, that's what you're hoping for a guy like Quency Wiggins. And I think largely that's one of the benefits of the transfer portal. I mean, these guys are 17-year-old kids committing to a program, and maybe it doesn't work out at their first stop. And then you see them kind of explode onto the scene in their second stop. That's what you're hoping for Quency Wiggins. So a little bit of a different kind of transfer commitment here in terms of you don't necessarily know what you have at the Power 5 level for Quency Wiggins, but you know what you might have. And what you might have is truly a special defensive lineman at a massive position of need. And you take a look at what Colorado has brought in the portal. A lot of these guys are proven talent, right? Preston Hodge played at an extremely high level at Liberty. We talked about him yesterday. The Wade brothers, obviously coming from Kentucky. Will Shepard, one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. Matthew Bedford played a ton of football at Indiana. You scroll down, Khalil Benson played a ton of football at Indiana. Tyler Johnson, ton of football at Houston. Yakiri Walker, ton of football at UConn. A lot of these guys are experienced players. Quency Wiggins, a little bit of a different story. And what's exciting is this isn't the only prospect that kind of has that high upside, but you haven't really seen yet. Another guy that's on campus for Colorado, and this would be just such an exciting get, is Cordell Russell coming over from TCU, right? On campus for Colorado. Colorado's already done a phenomenal job in terms of boosting the skill around Deion Sanders. Cordell Russell, as a true freshman at TCU, didn't really get on the football field. But again, you see the national ranking on your screen. Top 65 national player, and for good reason. 6'4", 210, runs an 11-second 100 meters, so he's got some burners, but he is a physically imposing, gifted wide receiver that hasn't necessarily played a ton at the college football level. And so I like it. You're kind of sprinkling in some guys that, all right, they might not have all-American upside, but you know you're going to get good play from them. Guys like Bedford and Khalil Benson. And then you're sprinkling in some guys like Cordell Russell and Quency Wiggins, who you're not necessarily sure what you're going to get year one, but guys that could be phenomenal football players if they do reach their potential. And that's kind of the goal of college football, is getting guys in who have a ton of talent and developing them to being great football players. Cordell Russell, Quency Wiggins, kind of fitting that scope. So for Colorado fans, how you're viewing Quency Wiggins is not necessarily judging him on what he did at LSU. It's keeping in mind that this is a dude that's played 4 years of football at either level, high school or college. He's just starting to learn the sport, just starting to scratch the surface of what kind of football player he can be. And I'm keeping my eye on a guy like Quency Wiggins. I think this is one of the benefits of the transfer portal. A guy like Quency Wiggins transferring to another school, getting some more playing time, getting some more coaches in his ear. Really excited about what Quency Wiggins can be for Colorado. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.